We are gentlemen united, and you are in the man cave. Tonight I'll be talking to Stanley Paul, original Gentlemen United member, returning to the man cave to talk about his very life-changing experiences as he traveled to South Africa, the tip of the African continent. Stanley is also featured in several of our shows, including The Legacy of Barack Obama Parts 1 and 2, Single Parenting in the Black Community, and Aftershocks of Divorce in the Black Community. Stanley is an IT professional and program manager in the field of satellite communication technology and a good friend of mine. Recently back from a trip which evolved from a bucket list vacation spot into what I refer to as a life-altering pilgrimage, many of us live vicariously through Stanley as our unofficial boots-on-the-ground correspondent in South Africa. He has kindly accepted my request to share his experiences, his emotions, and some life lessons with all of us. As always, for those watching this live broadcast on YouTube, feel free to add your comments and questions in the comment bar. I'll watch for them throughout the show and add them time permitting. Joining us tonight is Stanley Paul, and of course you, our viewers. I'm Sean Best, and I'm your host and moderator. Stanley, what's up, man?
Hey, Sean, how you doing? Yeah, it's been a while. I've been doing a little bit of this and that all over the place, but you know, I'm back.
You're back, yeah. You came up for air.
Yeah. It's about that time.
Good, yeah, that's right. I'm glad to have you back, man. Listen, so I know that on this trip you traveled to other places other than South Africa. I think the focus for today's conversation is going to be South Africa. I think from us living vicariously through you and all the social media postings, that I think, although the pictures and the other locations you were in, I think was Dubai, were just amazing. All those huge towers in the middle of the desert, and the skiing and indoor skiing in the desert, is just fabulous. But I think the South African story is the one that really, I think, piqued my interest the most. So, and I know that from your posts, I saw your posts, they were some very not just interesting lessons learned, but I think I saw a bit of a transformation in you, as you were going through that trip. So I kind of wanted to learn about that and share some of that with other people and get people excited about, including me, about the ability or the time, considering maybe traveling to South Africa. So with all that said, how did you come to the decision to travel to South Africa, of all places, to vacation? Why South Africa?
Okay, thank you for the introduction, and let me just say, first of all, let me step back a little bit and tell you from where I came to where I'm at right now. Okay, travel has always been something that has been a hotspot for me. I love to travel. I love hopping on a plane, going someplace, planning it all out, and watching it all come to fruition, and just experiencing all that the world has to offer. One of my favorite sayings is, "The future is now." 20s and our 30s, we're always saying, when? Well, when is now. I'll do it later is now, because we're the age where most of us, late 40s, early 50s, and we're the point where some parents are starting to pass away. Certain of our peers are starting to pass away, and it's like you stop and you think and you wonder. I wonder if they have lived a fulfilling life. Like, if I pass away tomorrow, what have I done to say that I could look back on my deathbed and go, wow? Or will I be, I wish I did, I wish I could have, I wish I went. The biggest misnomer in terms of travel is people tend to believe that it takes a lot of money to travel. It really doesn't. Yes, it does take cash, but I believe there are tons and tons of deals to be found if you just are plugged into the right avenues or right vehicles. And there's many on the internet, many travel sites that I get on the regular trips deals. And the next thing is you have to have the ability and the vacation time to be able to pounce on a great opportunity.
Right.
So that's another key, right?
Yes.
So that being said, my mother travels a lot, and that's one of her things. She's a traveler, and that's where I guess I got my travel bug from. And for this trip, I had my big 50 birthday trip last year, and I actually always wanted to do Africa for my 50th. That did not happen. I ended up doing the Mediterranean cruise, which was mind blowing, and you saw the pictures of those in the last year. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, within eight months, I was able to come upon this trip. You know, it was my significant other's her 50th birthday, and she wanted to do a trip. So I said, make it a good one. So let's do it. You know, let's make sure it's a wow. Let's don't skimp on it. Just find, you know. So just as that being said, again, one of those deals popped up on in my inbox, and I was like, wow, this is amazing price. And it was called Super South Africa in Dubai, which was fly from Canada to Dubai, hop on another plane, fly from Dubai to Johannesburg. Did Johannesburg, Soweto, went on to Kruger National Park and did an African safari. There went down to Stellenbosch, where that was the wine district, which was nice. And then from there went down to Cape Town, where had a chance to do Robben Island, Table Mountain, go down to the Cape of Good Hope, right to the southernmost point of the African continent. And from there, fly back up to Dubai for 4 days. And that in itself, that this was an amazing vacation, because South Africa, you want to go to South Africa for vacation? Yes, it was the bomb. Mm-hmm. Mind-blowing. It was beyond anything I could have imagined. I mean, to actually get to Africa for one, which is something I always wanted to do. I was sitting there and like, I'm really here. Look at what I'm doing. Like when you're looking at the animals, you're taking it all in, but at the same time, it's look at where I am. Like those moments when it hit you, it was like, wow. This trip in South Africa it went from one day being good to the next day being better, to the next day, and each day in terms of right down to the way how things even happen. I'll tell you a little story later on, to how things just happen in the right way. Like if something's meant to be, it will happen in the right way. And when I tell you the story, you're gonna be blown away.
Is it fair to say that this was was it fair to what I said, that this is a bucket list dream vacation for you? And tell us how you organize the trip. Like you mentioned just now, there are lots of different online programs you can go to get really great deals. It's not that expensive to travel. Those who have watched my previous show with Jason Marshall, World Traveler, he traveled with his family, his wife and his son, for a year, and they traveled literally. They were in South Africa. I think they were in Rwanda. They were in Uganda. I mean, they traveled all over the Middle East. It was amazing. He said it didn't cost anywhere near what you think it would cost. Because when I think of vacation, I think of Negril on the beach, 5-star hotel. Now I'm sure the cost of that vacation could probably cover the cost of your vacation and plus some. Is that a fair statement?
Well, as I said, it's deals, and the typical African safari trip runs. I mean, for a decent travel provider, I mean, you're looking at, from what I've seen, just for the Africa portion of my trip, was running somewhere around $5,000–6,000. I did Dubai and South Africa for under $5,000.
For two people or for one person? Is it two people
per person?
Per person. But that's the flight there, that's the flight back, that's the hotel, that's everything. It's everything in.
Flights there, transfers, hotel in Johannesburg, hotel in Kruger National Park, hotel in Stellenbosch, hotel in Cape Town. We had a bus, a coach, a 40-seat coach that was with us the whole time. It was really, really well done. I said bravo to the tour provider. They were really good. And in a heartbeat, I'll do this again. In a heartbeat, because everything was taken care of, right down to the last detail.
You know, and I've always found when I did these vacations where before you go on vacation, you're looking at, okay, can I get the time off? Can I afford it? And then after the vacation, when I look back at the experience, I almost immediately forget what I spent on it, because the experience was so much more than the money I spent on it. Is that sort of your experience as well?
Okay, I tell my friends, I said, through my life changes and experiences, I have material things mean very little to me. I feel I get 10 times more value out of travel and going around and experiencing the world and experiencing, not even experiencing, but finding out the truths of things that I've learned in school, whether it's really the truth or that we hear in the news versus what the reality is of going and seeing it for yourself with your own two eyes, right? And anybody can travel, but do I want the rims on my car, or do I want to go experience the world? Do I want that the next big screen TV? Okay, I want this. No, I have the 60-inch now. I want the 90-inch. Or do I want to go travel the world? Now, to each his or her own, which is understandable. If that's your thing, fine. But the number one thing I find when I talk about with my travels is, oh, I don't think I can do that. Oh, that costs a lot of money. I said, well, and when you figure out what's important to you, you'll know whether or not you can travel. I'm not saying it's cheap, but it's not as expensive as people think it is. I mean, as I said, there's a lot of deals out there.
Well, it sounds like what you're talking about really is the comparison between what I call the instant dopamine hit. When you get the big screen TV, you're excited for the first day, you're watching the football game all weekend. And about a month later, you're just watching regular TV that you always watched before on a bigger screen. So that first exciting hit is over, and you're kind of back to a level playing field, right, with a bigger screen. What I found with these trips that you've taken, it is, to a certain degree, it's you grow as a human being, and it's life altering. You know, I always talk about the fact that there's you say when you die, your life flashes before your eyes. You know, it's the life cam. And my whole thing is, you know, what pictures I want to have on that video clip that's on my life cam. Is it going to be, hey, I got the 90-inch screen TV, or is it going to be, I went to South Africa? Yeah, I mean, which is going to be more? Now, some people may say, I'm good with having the 90-inch screen TV on my life cam. Well, okay, you know, if you keep the bar low, then you can't be disappointed in life. But, you know, I would choose something that's a little more more of a life experience for me than, you know, just the instant sort of gratification. Now, did your actual experience there match what you thought it would be, or was it much more?
It was much more, because I didn't know what I didn't know in terms of the amount I was going to learn. And I have to say one thing for sure is that when you're on these type of trips, your tour guide can make or break your trip. And I was lucky to have this guy. His name was Peter. He was an Afrikaan, ninth generation, a white guy, ninth generation. So he was African, as he says. And every day we started the day, it's another beautiful day in South Africa. It was, and it was right. Every day was beautiful. Now, going there in May, it was their winter. So every morning, if you're up early, because our days were long, we got up in the morning and it was go, go, go. But it was we were doing and seeing things and being awed out of our minds in the scenery, the animals, and every experience that we had. And the tour guide, Peter, the knowledge that he imparted on us, the stories, the lessons, I'm hoping I'll be able to regurgitate, you know, a few here this evening. But the guy was really good, and he made the trip, man. He really made the trip with the information that he had. Every question that we asked, you know, he answered them. He answered them as honestly as he could. And there were some of them that he said, you know, I don't want to talk about that, which we understood. But there was very little. There was only one thing he didn't want to talk about. And again, we'll touch on that a little bit.
Now, what do you think is the biggest misconception that we have, people who have been to Africa or have been to South Africa? What's the biggest misconception do you think that we have, or maybe that you had before you traveled there, and your mind got completely opened and blown when you actually saw it?
Well, there's multiple answers to this question, and a few different flavors of that question that I can answer. First of all, aside from me, when I was on this trip tour, I had 21 other people from various places. We had a couple from Canada, and the majority of the rest were from the United States. And there was three blacks on the trip out of the 21. And the number one thing I heard was, as we were going through Africa, first of all was, oh, I didn't think it was going to be like this. Oh, I didn't. It was going to be like this. And I'm like, what did you think it was going to be like? I mean,
McDonald's.
So it just. But I figured they think that people was having the idea of whatever was been portrayed. First of all, there's not enough education in Africa, considering it is the mother of civilization. It's the motherland of civilization. There's not enough information. And when you look at the news, you don't see about any prosperity anywhere. All you see is about the refugees, the droughts, people migrating from one spot to another spot because of the war and all this sort of stuff. You
Boko
don't see the good
Haram,
things.
all that kind of stuff. It's always a bad news.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of misconceptions of what to expect with Africa. Like, it's not just bush and animals and all this sort of stuff. You have skyscrapers, you have buildings, you have industry. The education I got by being there and seeing things in my own two eyes, I got a real good education on how apartheid came into being. I got a good education on when we see all these squatter towns, how those came to be. I mean, since we had the end of apartheid and a sort of supposed quote unquote integration was going to start happening, a lot of the blacks left from the townships and started migrating into town, now looking for opportunity to work and make money. Now, of course, they had no place for people to go, so the government helped creating these little shanty towns. The shanty towns have potable water, full sewage system, electricity coming in. But if you saw one or two of my videos, you're seeing these little shacks as we're passing along the highway. We're going on the highway across from the major airport in Cape Town, and there's these little shacks, but everybody has a satellite dish on top because everybody got to see their soccer. But they basically live there rent free. They only have to pay for their electricity that's coming into their hut. So it was a real. I mean, and you're seeing quite a few of these migration. And the one thing I learned when it comes to asking a South African about where they reside, it's where do you live and where is your home? Everybody's home is in their township or their tribal land. Where they live is where they go to work. And a lot of them, they'll work to make money to build a big home because it's the status symbol within the culture of having that big home. So you work and wherever you live, you can be squatting, whatever, but you're taking all your money to come back home and build that home as a status symbol within the community. When
we think of South Africa, we generally think of apartheid. We think of the late South African president and Nobel Peace Prize winner, Mr. Nelson Mandela. Generally speaking, what do we not know about South Africa and or about Mandela? I think we know quite a bit about him and his story, but is there anything that you discovered that you were thinking, even though I've seen all this, this news about Mandela and I know his history, there's things I just didn't know about him that I just discovered?
No, I think for the most part, a lot about Mandela has been covered. What was missing is you see, Mandela was one man among many, okay? And to go into, which we'll get to, Robben Island, and to learn and walk through the jails and walk into each cell. And in each cell, they had a picture of the person who was in that cell, their date that they were incarcerated, and they had some type of letter or some words on a plaque about them. And this was threw down different corridors and numerous cells all the way. Every single cell you can walk in and just see the person who was in these cells. And to learn, like we hear about apartheid, we hear about people, about like Mandela, who was incarcerated because of his views and what he was saying about, saying at the time about, being free and being able to be self-rule, was that the amount of people who got thrown into jail for absolutely no reason except for that they opened their mouth and to talk about, being equal.
Which was considered
and they just got plucked up. Yes, because at that point in time, the government saw them as being able to, if you could talk and you can talk politics, you were a danger to the government of the day. Definitely. Right? So the thing was to squash it as quickly as possible. We know of Mandela, but his story brought tears to my eyes as we were driving through Robben Island. Now, of course, we're getting onto Robben Island since we're talking about Mandela. Just to learn the story of this one prisoner, I have to look up the name because I totally forgot it because it was a name I could not remember, was what they did to him because he was he had more notoriety than Mr. Mandela. And they had him in total solitary confinement. Nobody was allowed to talk to him. Nobody, he served his time, and when it was time to come out, they changed the law that they can put him back in jail. Now he did his time. no, they kept him, and they did psychological torture on these guys. Kept him away from his family, didn't let any letters come in. Even when his, I forgot, a family member died, they didn't even let the news come to him. Then after he did his 5 years and he's ready to come out, they changed the law, and then they can, on a yearly basis, prolong him, and they put this in for everybody. Nobody was allowed to talk to him, and as I kind of alluded to in one of my videos, that's where that symbol came up, was when prisoners were walking by him now.
That was their way of acknowledging him.
Power for the people, acknowledging him, fight together. And what he would do, because he can't talk back to them, he'd bend down, grab the earth, and do this, and let it fall through his fingers just to illustrate this is what we're fighting for, our land.
Oh, dude, you're killing me.
Man, like, you know, like that sort of stuff when I was there hearing our guide inside the jail tell us about the inhumane conditions that the guard dogs were treated better than the inmates. When I went past the limestone quarry where these guys worked, and they were not allowed to wear masks, they were not allowed to wear eye protection. When lime got on your skin, it started eating away in your skin. That's why Mandela had to go through eye surgery after he got out of jail, because of all the lime. And they had a hole. Yes. So whenever they had to, and it was hot. It gets hot, I'm sure, when these guys are working. So there was actually a hole of the quarry. And in there, when they had their break, because they couldn't leave, they would go in there and eat and do all their bodily functions. But they realized that when they were in there, they were away from the guards. So that in that little hole in a wall, that's where they would do all their talking and planning and stuff like that when they were going in there to eat.
Robben Island, I think some people know what Robben Island is. Some people don't. So just pretend I just landed on a spaceship from Mars. What's Robben Island? What's the significance of it? And, you know, just educate us a bit on what Robben Island is.
Robben Island, everybody knows Robben Island as to being the island where the prison was that housed Mandela and all the political prisoners, all the black political prisoners of the day in South Africa. But what I learned is Robben Island is a huge island, more than just the jail. They had a jail on there, but they also have a church. They have, it was almost a landing area for ships as they were coming in and out, going around in South Africa. It was also an area, I think they might have had a little military base there. It was also a leper colony. They had a leper colony there also. And it's a maximum also. Yeah, they didn't just have the political prisoners, but that a maximum facility. They had a lower facility, security facility, and the maximum facility is where they kept all the killers and everybody like that. But that's where they also kept the political prisoners.
Of course, we want to keep them in fear the whole time, right? Yes. Now, I think on your story, in my research as well, Nelson Mandela was finally sentenced and sent to prison. His original prison sentence was 5 years, I think, just like you were saying, and he didn't get out until 27 years later, and that was pretty much because there was so much international pressure at that time. You and I would remember this, where everyone, every T-shirt said, that today we have Black Lives Matter. Back in those days, it was Free Mandela, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's P.K. Botha, I believe, was the president of the Afrikaner minority ruling party at the time. Released him unconditionally. The party had obviously evolved and become, either bowed under pressure from an international country because they traded gold. 25% of the world's gold comes from South Africa, so they needed the world to be on side with them. So, applied pressure. They let him out unconditionally, but he served 27 years of a 5-year sentence. Is that your experience? Is that what you heard?
Well, he spent, on Robben Island, I believe, 18 years out of the 27 years. And he spent, I believe, another 7 years in another prison, which I saw. We actually passed that prison. I had a chance to see it. But, of course, I was totally focused on Robben Island. I saw it the day before we passed that prison where he was. So 18 years he spent in Robben Island. Okay, I was supposed to go, from the time I was there, we got into Cape Town on a Wednesday morning, and we were supposed to go to Robben Island that afternoon. Our guide, I guess because it's the winter down there right now, he was still working on summer hours. So the boat left the ferry left an hour earlier than we were preparing for. So we missed it that day. So this was something that was very near and dear to my heart. Like there was no way in the world I was coming back from South Africa and to tell anybody I was there and I didn't go to Robben Island. That was not going to happen, right? So we started seeing, okay, could we go the next day? I was willing to bypass the peninsula tour to go on the Thursday. No, the only time we can go is 9 o'clock Friday morning. Okay, not a problem. Things work out as it should. I got on the ferry that morning, and there's a camera crew on the ferry, and I'm seeing a whole bunch of people coming up and talking to this guy. So I'm saying, there's no way in the world I'm going to be in this boat and don't go and ask, who the hell is this, right? So I went up to one of the cameramen. I said, excuse me, so who's this person? He goes, oh, his name is Mac Maharaj. I said, who? He goes, he was actually incarcerated with Mandela. I said, that name sounds familiar. So I walked over to him and I said, hi, how you doing? My name is Stanley. I introduced myself to him and I said, your name is Mac Maharaj? He goes, yeah. And as we got to talking, I found out he is the guy. He was incarcerated with Mandela. They were there to do a documentary on him and his life in Robben Island. And he was a person who was responsible for smuggling this transcript of A Long Walk to Freedom out of the jail, out of South Africa to England to get the book published. The first transcript they caught. I don't know how or who, if he was taking the first one, but Mandela, after they got the first one, wrote the whole thing over again. And Mac Maharaj is the man who got it out of Robben Island, out of South Africa to England and got the book published. And the next person I met who was there interviewing Mac Maharaj, his name was Sir Trevor McDonald. And he was a man, he interviewed Mandela back in 1984 while he was imprisoned. And also was the guy who did the first interview with Mandela when he first got out of jail. And suffice it to say, he's a Trini man. So we had a good conversation about that.
Now, I understand that Nelson Mandela left office in 1994, and then he stepped out of public life in 2004. So now, as I was preparing for the show and my research, I came across some postings online where there were claims now that what's now the black majority of South African government, led under the ANC, that was the party that Nelson Mandela was part of way back in the 50s and 60s. They're still around now. Now they are the leading government, and that the government has, according to what I've seen recently, like as recently as a couple months ago, is veering away from Mandela's dream to, quote unquote, unite the African people and out of them build a nation. And it seems from what I'm seeing now that they're moving towards government-sponsored programs designed to take land back from white Afrikaners. I even saw some posts where they're claiming this is being done by force and what's happening is the government is turning a blind eye to violence that's going on now as black, South Africans are apparently violently taking land back from these Afrikaners. Now, I've seen a lot of really actually scary kind of postings. People are talking about there's a race war on the horizon and all this sort of stuff. Did you hear anything like that while you were there? Did anybody kind of talk about it in hushed tones, or were they talking about it out loud, or did you have any experience about that at all?
Well, the thing with Zuma being in charge right now, with our guide, he was very reluctant to touch on anything to do with Zuma, because his policies and the rhetoric that he's putting out there right now has moved very far away from where ANC, the whole ideology behind the ANC. So anytime the name Zuma came up, everybody was like, oh, I don't want to talk about him. I don't want to hear anything about this guy. The running joke down there is I think Zuma, he has 3 wives. And I think one actually, they said she came to her senses and sadly she committed suicide to get away from this dude.
Wow,
she got all
that
depressed
says a lot.
and everything like that. Yeah, exactly. And even Mac Maharaj, he's totally like, that was one topic. As we were talking and spending some time on the ferry, somebody even said, that's one thing that he doesn't even want to talk about. If you want to hear, that's what Trevor McDonald told me. He goes, if you want to hear somebody go off, talk to him about Zuma and you'll see.
Because you know what? Look, you got to feel for the guy. The guy, he put his reputation and his life on the line for the vision of the ANC. I guess he was part of the ANC along with Mandela, and to
Yes.
see where it's come now after what he sacrificed. And this guy, I mean, I don't know the story, but from what I've seen, there's claims that the party is leaning towards becoming a communist-style government. There's claims that people are not sure whether he's going to take the money and make the country a better place, whether he's just going to line his pockets and become another, dictatorship, another African dictatorship. So that was surprising to me, but I hadn't really been paying attention to South African,
Well, the whole thing with that is where he's trying to go. I think that rhetoric, I think the guys like that, and this is just my opinion, not being fully versed, but only getting a taste of it while I was there, is the fact of first of all, from where they have come to where they are. Of course, there's nowhere close to being equal yet, but the fact of saying that people who, I mean, that can open up the whole Pandora's box for debate on just because your ancestors did this, this, and that, doesn't mean that those of us who are, ninth generation should have to give up anything that we have, regardless of how we got it. But we are here now, and
yeah,
and
that
looking
debate, yes, it's not different than the debate happening here in the United States with the Native Indians. Hey, I know we took your land, but that was a long time ago, and you're not getting it back. So I mean, that's one of those. Everyone's going to draw their line in the sand, and no one's going to cross it, right? Interesting. So now, tell me a little bit about your interaction with the local South Africans. Did you find that your interaction with the Afrikaners and the Black South Africans was different? Was the dynamic different? Or from your perspective, were they, at least the people that you interacted with, were they really sort of bought into the of many one nation?
No, the thing with South Africa is people think that because apartheid is gone, okay, yeah, they were, there's that country, there's that country all the way down there in the south of Africa, and they got rid of apartheid, so it's 30 years now, things should be good and things should be coming along. But when people say that, I ask them, I said, where's America right now? And when segregation ended back in the late 50s, early 60s, how far has America come? Are things equal? No. So
last time I checked, Philando Castile, that's no different than what happened in in Mississippi. When they're trying to get people to register for the vote. I mean, the same kind of nonsense is happening now, 50, 60 years later.
Exactly. So the thing is, in 30 years, you have a population that's 80% Black being ruled by 12% Caucasian, and they set up all the rules to make sure that a Black man cannot get or have anything. Okay. And the rules became, the rules, when I heard some of the rules, I can't recount very many because that sort of stuff was kind of mind-boggling to see what they did to strip the dignity and any type of earning potential away. The schools were like slim to none. I mean, even now, like going through Johannesburg was an eye-opening experience. It's the equivalent of having a thriving city, which Johannesburg once was. And as post-apartheid, as the people start coming up from the townships and the tribal lands into the city, businesses, you have at one point in time, one of the biggest hotels in South Africa in Johannesburg. And right now it sits down totally empty, not being used. Why? Because as you have the tribal people and the people from the townships coming in looking for work, they're already underserved by education because the schooling system for the Blacks versus the Caucasians in South Africa it's like here. It was really bad.
Night and day.
So you're coming in there, you're looking for work, and you have tons and tons. So of course, if you don't have money, you don't have jobs, then what tends to come in? Crime, right? Mm-hmm. And Johannesburg was an eye-opening thing because everywhere you look, it was wow. And the tour guy, he says, okay, we're playing a game. Spot the white guy. Not a single one. in Johannesburg that we saw and we drove as we were getting toured out through.
So it sounds a lot like something that Andre mentioned a few shows back. He talked about what was the term that was used basically when desegregation happened here in the South. Black families who had gotten jobs and wanted to move into nice homes would try to buy homes in certain neighborhoods, and they were either not allowed to buy homes there, or if they did, the white people would just up and leave. Is that essentially what's happening there?
No, that's exactly what happened in Johannesburg, right? That's totally what happened. And he said that there's certain parts right now that the tour company would even let him stop the bus because in broad daylight. But I could understand how it got. We know now how it got to there. Okay, so looking at South Africa and knowing and seeing what has happened in America, South Africa has a long way to go. But the difference that I really see the difference between South Africa and America is that it's kind of going away from the color of your skin to the color of your credit card. If you have money in South Africa, okay, you can do pretty well. And right now, they're not really looking at the color of the skin per se when it comes to the financial, because money will get you out of whatever or wherever you are.
Well, that's the case here too. I mean, if you're LeBron James and you're driving a bus, nobody gives a who you are. But if you're LeBron James, King James, and people know what your wallet looks like because they see it broadcast on TV all the time, you're a different color. You're green. Yeah,
for the most part. So they're just following the template. I don't know. I really don't know the in-depth workings of at the granular level of the issues, because of course I'm not there long enough or spend enough time to understand or really get a good grasp of it. But I can see, with my eyes, I can see and you get a vibe of how things are down there. And
so did you see any poor Afrikaners?
Boy, poor Afrikaners, no. I can't really say I saw a lot because of the demographic of the population. The 80% black. Yeah. So when you see poor, when you tend to see people in the street, it's predominantly black, of course, right?
Right.
And really, at the evening time and nighttime, man, in Cape Town, forget about Johannesburg, because we didn't even go to Johannesburg in the evening, okay? But Cape Town, yeah, for lack of a better phrase, the freaks come out at night. And no matter what city you go to around the world, but they're really, man, because everybody's out there begging and all this sort of stuff. From wherever they are during the daytime, nighttime, they're out there on the roads begging, looking for money.
I remember a friend of mine years ago when I was still living in Toronto. She got a job working for a Swiss bank, I believe, in South Africa, in Johannesburg, I think it was. I forget where it was, one of the major cities. And I remember her telling me this story. She said, when you drive, through, you have to drive, I think, through the townships to get into the city, apparently. And she says, when you drive into the city, even when you get to a red light, a stoplight, you do not stop the car. You look both ways, you drive right through. You stop the car, what she was saying is people will jump out at you, take out the car and take the car from you, rob you or whatever. Like you would get attacked. So people didn't even stop at the stoplights. Is that what your experience was?
No, because we were in a bus. It was daytime, but I could see at nighttime in certain spots and places. Yeah, you wouldn't even drive through them. You wouldn't even bother.
Right.
I didn't see that so in Cape Town, but more was Johannesburg. It was very eye-opening to drive up through Soweto, which basically is on southwestern township. That's what Soweto stands for. And you hear a lot about Soweto, but it was an eye-opening thing to go down there and actually see it. Drive around. It's called Freedom Circle, and that was surreal for me.
So what did you get out of that? What did you see? What was it that you saw that was so eye-opening?
That one. I'd say that the human being is very resilient. Okay, if there's a desire to survive, if there's a desire to live, you can find a way to live no matter what your circumstance. Right? It may not be glamorous or glorious, but you can find a way to live and survive. I mean, we see it all the time. I mean, you see it everywhere. Any country you go to, you're gonna see you have the haves and the have-nots. But this was at a level that I had never seen. Like, I'm sure if when I go to India, it's gonna be a different level again from what I've heard of India. I want to have a chance to see that for myself. But to see this in South Africa, and to go through Soweto and go through the township, see the shanty towns in Cape Town. I mean, right by the airport, man, and all these little shacks all along the highway. And to see the difference, you have the areas where the blacks are, then you have the areas where what they call the coloreds are, and then you have the area, I think there's Indians, and then you have the whites.
Now, what are the coloreds? I thought the coloreds were the Indians in South Africa.
No, but the coloreds, well, the coloreds are considered, I think it was either black and Indian. Okay, give you a colored. Right? And the weirdest thing was to go through the Apartheid Museum in Johannesburg and to see, like, there was a lot of payouts back in the day to be labeled something. All right, so you'll see a colored being termed a black, or Indian being termed a colored, or black being termed whatever else, depending on how much money they have and who they could have paid off, right? Because you actually had paperwork that you had to walk with. But you never saw anybody becoming white.
Well, of
right?
course not. So each designation had a different value in terms of what you could earn, earning potential.
Yes.
Hmm.
And another interesting feeling was going through the Apartheid Museum, and so they just randomly give you tickets, right? And depending on the ticket you get was the entrance you had to take. They had a white entrance and a non-white entrance. And it was
kidding, dude.
Yeah, but you didn't
Whites
have
and
to.
coloreds?
I had a white, so I went to the white side, right? So
you just randomly
you just get the random tickets, right? No, you just get random tickets. It's random tickets, but it's for you to understand and they ask you, please go through the side of the ticket that you had. So regardless of what you got, you know.
Yeah.
And
so you had the experience. I mean, it wasn't enforced. It was there to remind you of what it used to be like.
Remind you, exactly.
Right. It reminds me of when I went to the Human and Civil Rights Museum here in Atlanta. I did a show on that back in February, and they had all the signs and the pictures up where coloreds drink here, and this is a white water, white people's water fountain, the whole bit. So yeah, that all kind of comes together. So I'm going to switch tracks in here for a second.
Okay.
There are less broadly known South African historical figures. This is one in particular that I think I learned about this person before I knew who Mandela was. Entirely by accident. I was watching the A&E miniseries back in the early 80s. In particular, I'm referring to Shaka Zulu. For those who don't know, everyone's heard of the Zulu Nation, but a lot of people I don't think really know what the Zulu Nation's about and why they became so well known. So I understand that Shaka was a fierce and legendary warrior who fulfilled a prophecy of building the Zulu Nation. Now, on many occasions, he's been compared to famous war strategists like Napoleon Bonaparte and Caesar, the Emperor of the Roman Empire. In fact, when I watched this miniseries, the British Empire, which at that time was the military power of the world, I'm talking about the late 1700s, early 1800s. America was not a world military power at the time. It was Britain, and even they were afraid of the fighting force that Shaka Zulu had built. Now I know that I'm speaking about him in these high and lofty terms. I also watched the series, and let's just say he was a really brutal guy. You did not want to cross that dude. So anyways, did you come across any references to King Shaka, who was also known as Mkosi Amazulu?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that, because our guide, again, on our way back from Kruger National Park, it was a 5-hour drive from Johannesburg to and from the Kruger National Park. So on the way back, we started talking, and as we were going through on the lands, he goes, this land here was predominantly by the Zulus, and anybody here know about the Zulus? And so a conversation broke up about that. And we asked a bit of the questions, and he said, if you're interested, he got back on the mic, because we were just talking, got back on the mic, and he just gave us a lesson. So from what I can remember, this is a story he told me now. Okay, so basically, Shaka Zulu's mother, she was playing around with I guess the king or the son who was going to be the king. Okay.
Her name was Nandi.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And she got pregnant, And when she went and told him that she was pregnant, he said, "No way, that I didn't do that." He totally denied it. There's no way. And she left and she went over to the other tribe, to another tribe. She was banished and she went and lived with another tribe. So Shaka grew up on that end, and he ended up becoming the king, or worked his way up through and became to dominance. Now, I can't remember exactly if he became king or whatever, but there was an encounter between him and the then king, and basically he eventually took his rightful place.
Well, he did. He took care of his father.
Yeah, he took care of his father, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happened, how he became known as a very fierce warrior, was his war tactics. Back in the day, they would have their spears, and everybody would come and stand up on each side of a river or stand up on each side of a field, and everybody would throw their spears, and basically when all the spears were done being thrown, that was the end of the war. That was the end of the fight.
They weren't really going to kill anybody. It wasn't. It was like a break dancing battle. Whoever broke danced the best won, and everybody went home and had dinner with their families.
But Shaka said, let's wait, let everybody throw. And once they depleted themselves, they were on them, and they took no prisoners. And he ended up became known for his fighting style, because nobody else could deal with that, right? What else can I remember of this?
What I remember, let me see if I can add to this while you're thinking about it. So what I recall is that the spears were very long spears, and Shaka said, "You know what? This isn't going to work." He broke the spear in half to make it a shorter spear, almost like a long knife. And then the shields that they had were short shields. He made them a lot longer, so that when you got in for close hand-to-hand combat, that the shield would cover your whole body, so you can stick them. Right? I mean, I'm not sure if that's what you heard, but that's what I recall.
Yes, exactly. And from there, but his downfall. So to jump forward to where he finally started getting defeated, was because the white man came in with the gun. And Shaka Zulu, all the machismo and testosterone there, always would fight in the daytime. They would never think of attacking at night. So it was, come to an open field and we'll come up to you hand to hand and then we'll go. But those guys stood up there with guns and pam, 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 and took them down. Right? So that's how he started losing his dominance. Then is when the rifle and the guns came into being. What
I heard was, I think the reason why there are comparisons to him and to Caesar is because of the way that he died. So if I recall the story correctly, the British Empire, I think it was the governor of was it Johannesburg back in those days? I don't know if that was a town or not, but he reached out to the British Empire to say, you need to send troops. Now they sent troops by sea. They wouldn't fly over in a day. It would take them months to get there, and they were afraid that as Shaka was going from region to region and dominating and taking over tribes, he would take those people into his KwaZulu-Natal, and they became bigger. And that's how the Zulu nation, because they were a very small, nondescript tribe way back when he was born, right? They became this big monolith. And I think what had happened was, as he got older, he started getting a little bit, I don't want to say senile, but he was starting to lose it a little bit. And I remember the scene where he would paint his hair with this ink because it was turning gray, and he wanted to stay young forever. He thought it was a youth serum, although it was just painting his hair. And his chiefs, the guys who were his captains, began to realize they were scared of him. Like everybody was scared of him. And so that scene that you hear about, when Caesar's guys turn against him and they'll stab him, apparently in this story, that's what they did with Shaka. Shaka kind of saw it coming. He just stood there, and they took their swords, and he has a certain way that he'd stab you, where he knew how to cut meat to get you to the right organs, and they just stuck right into him, and that's how they took him down. And then I think the Queen came in and they worked some sort of peace treaty, and that was kind of how that story petered off. From what I recall, I'm not sure if you heard all this from Peter, but that's what I recollect. But it was such an amazing story. So I'm sorry I took all your time talking about that.
No, that's all right, man. That's all right.
Yeah. So back to
I had so much I've forgotten so much already in this short period of time. But I was inundated with information, so much so that it's been mind blowing.
So what did I not ask you that you're thinking, you know what, this is the one thing that Sean hasn't asked me that I wanted to talk about?
Oh no, well, I can just say a couple of things. One of the things I realized in South Africa, especially in around the Johannesburg, is where I saw it quite a bit, but predominantly around all of South Africa. It was predominantly, they got a lot of gold out of South Africa, and with all the mining, you have a lot of what's called slag hills. So you'll be driving and you will just see, and you can always tell them because they always tend to be flat. Is this all after they do all the mining, they break down all the dust and all this, you have this yellow dust that's left behind. And you end up having these mountains of just this yellow dust of the earth. And it's, stuff is growing on it and everything now. And then I forgot, what's his name? I forgot the name, all the history, but until this young guy came and said, listen, what are you guys doing with all this? I will buy it. Because it was a dump, it's considered a dump, and all the mines were responsible for getting rid of this waste. So they basically gave it away to him. So over the years, of course, with the advancement of technology and everything like that, they're able now to extract, I forgot all the different type of minerals out of this stuff, and it's in your cell phones, it's in all our computer stuff, and all this guy did is went around and buy up all these heaps for nothing.
Yeah, I know that there's some metal that is required for all the cell phone technology that it's rare to get, and it's actually very expensive, which is why when you see these programs where they say, hey, you'll bring your cell phone and we'll swap it out, we'll give you the other one for free, or charge you $10, because there's a certain element inside of each of those devices that's worth a lot of money. So for them to get it back is actually worth for them to give you the other phone practically for free.
Exactly. Also, South Africa, they grow everything. South Africa is totally self-sufficient when it comes to agriculture. They don't have to ship anything in. And as you saw in my meals, I ate everything from warthog. I ate warthog. I ate impala. I ate ostrich. I ate another meat called kudu. It's a type of deer, antelope. Ostrich meat is fantastic, man. They say it's if your doctor ever tells you, listen, you need to stop eating, like they say, red meat, you can go to ostrich, because ostrich is the only meat fat-free, cholesterol-free. And you cook it rare, like medium rare, and it's like you're eating steak.
Now you can't do it, like, because I'm from the Caribbean. We don't eat medium rare, man. It's got to be well done.
But when it's cooked, it's if it's rare, it's not like you're not seeing pink or anything like that, because the meat, if you cook it any longer, it becomes like rubber, like leather.
Oh, I get you. Okay, yeah. Because there's no fat in it. There's no fat.
There's no fat. There's no
fat.
fat.
Okay.
So, and that was really great. I mean, the food down there was, I have to say, fantastic. But they say, what was it? Yeah, they have to be. I think there's a high rate of. I think they were saying, I can't believe if it was diabetes there, but the food was good, man.
Wow.
The food was very good.
Now, would you say that the trip was transformative? Now, I described it at the top of the show as a pilgrimage. Was that a stretch for me to say that?
Doing it, I did not look upon it as being a pilgrimage. I looked upon it, believe it or not, I'm getting ready to go on this trip, and I'm starting to have a little bit, the fear of unknown, because this is a long trip. I flew 12 hours from Toronto to Dubai, had a 3-hour layover, and then flew another 8 hours to Johannesburg. And people don't really realize how big Africa is. It's huge. It's humongous. The depiction on the map, on this Europeanized map that we look at, is BS, because the true depiction of the size of Africa is not well relayed. But I wouldn't say it was a pilgrimage. I was just looking forward to it. I was very excited. The first day alone, just the second day alone, after doing Johannesburg and just going to do Kruger National Park, like within the first 2-3 hours of that safari, I said, man, this is already making my trip. I didn't know what I was going to experience, but I'm so happy I did. And I know definitely I have about 3-4 more trips to Africa that I have to do. In terms of, I would love to go to Namibia, Botswana, Kenya, Madagascar, and then work my way up a little further, of course. But these countries right down to the mid-south, I definitely go see Victoria Falls and go, all those places. I definitely want to go see.
Yeah.
I'll get to Egypt and all the place after, but
eventually, yeah. So, would you say that? Did you feel a personal connection? Like, I know, was it more like, I'm a tourist and this is amazing, I learned a lot, or did you feel anything a little deeper than that?
I felt, well, there are different times I felt that. I definitely felt that in Cape Town. I definitely felt that with Robben Island. I don't know if it's to say transformative versus
eye-opening,
enlightening, and just a new state of awareness, and I have to admit, a new state of self-awareness, because to see the looks and see some of the stuff that I saw down there, it was like, wow, no matter where you go, and to be in Africa of all places, not that I'm in America, but to be in South Africa and knowing and learning the history of what happened there, it was, the dynamic is really weird, man.
Now, did the Black Africans, did they look at you differently? Like, could they tell by looking at you that you're not from around these parts?
Well, first of all, most likely, because South Africa, the tribes in South Africa are shorter. All right, so you tend to see the women are shorter, the men are shorter.
And you're like 6'3".
I'm 6'4".
6'4", so you're
yeah,
like a giant.
Yeah, so walking, everybody, everybody's shorter. So yeah, you can tell, and I mean, and most majority are a lot darker,
right? Because
of the sun, right? So
right, gotcha. All right, man. Listen, anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
Well, I definitely say that it's something I believe everybody needs to do. I would say for sure South Africa is one of the places, and you have to definitely go and learn and hear the history and the stories behind Robben Island. The country is absolutely beautiful. It's spectacular. I mean, of course, like any place else, the history behind certain areas versus the spectacular beauty of the land itself, it was beyond what I imagined it would be. The drive down around the peninsula, down the bottom of South Africa, the bottom of the continent of Africa, that in itself blew away. I thought Big Sur on the Highway 1 in California was nice. This blew that away. That blew that away, man. Big time. Nothing beats what I experienced. Well, there might be other places in the world, but so far the drive around the ocean, around the peninsula of South Africa was spectacular. The scenery, the animals. Yeah, it was. Everybody got to do this, man. I mean, if you have to save, if you think you need to save all that much, but I mean, it's there to be done. Start putting away a little $100, $50 a pay or something, and it can be done.
Listen, man, I appreciate your sharing all of your story and your memories about the trip with us. All right, Stanley, thanks for sharing your experiences and for your inspiration to so many to pursue their dreams. If you enjoyed the show and want to see more, join our public Facebook group called The Man Cave by Gentlemen United. All of our shows, tons of additional content, and invitations to future shows are posted there. You can add to the conversation and suggest future discussion topics if you'd like to see us tackle. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe by clicking here. If you enjoyed the show and you want to see more, click here. Thanks again for joining us on Gentlemen United.
Enjoyed the show? Like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for joining us in The Man Cave.